Hello, everybody. It looks like we are going live on the OneRing.net right now. And this is the OneRing.net, double checking, making sure sound is good, making sure video is good. Hello, everybody. Okay, this works. And this is what happens when you have a solo show all by yourselves. I want to say welcome, everybody, to the OneRing.net. And this is our Torn Tuesday, and I'm now streaming. This is Clifford Broadway hosting and coming to you live via satellite from London. I'm not here in London. I'm actually, that's what, if anybody remembers an old television show from the 1980s, maybe from the late 80s, early 90s, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, it was hosted by a British entertainment reporter named Robin Leach. And I'm just doing some Robin Leach right here. He's like, this is Robin Leach coming to you live via satellite from London. But no, it's just me. Hello, everybody. And I can see everybody in the YouTube chat. The chat is going on right here. It's active and lively. There's people. Hello. Lovely to have everyone here. Now, welcome once again to your weekly episode. This is the proper introduction. Take two. Welcome, everybody. This is Clifford Broadway, and I am hosting a solo special version of the OneRing.net Torn Tuesday. This is our Tuesday weekly broadcast of all things Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion, and J.R.R. Tolkien, everything under the sun. Actually, everything under the sun and moon, everything under the two lamps, everything under the two trees of Valinor, everything under the star of Erindil. Welcome, everybody. Yes, this is the show. We're doing it, and we are live. But a different adjustment, and I hope that the audience can be flexible and make a little bit of an adjustment with all of us as we do a unique broadcast here from my living room where a man could get killed. And there's also the Ringers poster. You know the room where I'm in. Welcome to my living room. So a fairly intimate space to everybody in the Tolkien community by now. Again, we're hosting this show as a special broadcast on Tuesday while Justin and other people who work behind the scenes on putting together the show are not available this week. They are incognito in stealth mode, doing other things that I do not know anything about. In fact, they're in places that I know nothing about. Feels so good. You can actually hear it squeak. The wink that I gave you was so hard, you almost heard it. I'm sure the audience out there almost heard the sound of it squeaking. Trying to get my eyes back open. Okay, I don't know anything at all about where my amiable co-producer and co-host, I don't know where he might be, but I am here and we're leading the charge. So everybody, welcome. We're going to have an interesting conversation. Today has been perhaps a day where many folks find themselves agitated or troubled by recent events or anything in the news. So we're not going to do that here. This is a much more quiet zone. This is the J.R.R. Tolkien zone. So now we're in the zone together and we're going to have a nice, relaxing time without the other troubles of the world beating their waves upon the shoreline. Well, we can hear the shoreline in the distance, like any good elf, like any one of the Noldorin who knows what's going on. We can hear the distant shores when we hear the seagulls crying in the distance. Whatever. We're going to leave the outside world outside, and we'll have a moment together, all of us together. I thought that it would be appropriate, given the amount of stress that's in the air. I thought that it would be really cool if we relaxed ourselves and had a really fun conversation. I've got news. I've got gossip. Boy, do I have surprises and unverified gossip. That's just not. I'm not even going to sell it as actual news reporting. It's not. This is not news reporting. But by the time we get to that portion of our show where it's Green Dragon gossip, boy, I've got some delicious surprises. We're going to talk about all these fun things. And hello, Stephen, and hello to everyone in the world. Hello, Troy, and wow, it's the Kurdish LOTR nerd. Hello, my Kurdish friends, and to international fans all around the world, Otaku Senpai, OS Classic, welcome to the show, my friends. And there's Varking. There's my boy. That's my boy. That's my boy, Varking, a rune song. He's a here for me. He's got me. John, I know that John Ben Asher, also known as Tukish, our very own staff members, Varking Runesong and Tukish are here with us. Hey, Cecilia, all my love for you, Cecilia, and my love for you, Princess Toy Nerd. All my love for everybody. There's, hey, Babe Cruiser. Wow, hello. I don't know about the babes, but the cruising is welcome. Welcome aboard to our live stream show. So there's a lot of mystery in the world. We're going to tune that out for about 1 hour. Give me the grace and the time that you have for about 1 hour, my friends. We want to talk about those things that take stress out of your life. And for me, for this little nerd, hold on, let's see. I'm going to make sure that I'm not losing the broadcast. I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi on this device and make sure that I'm using only network connection. I'm telling you, one of the things that takes the stress out of my life the most is knowing that there is always that book on the shelf, J.R.R. Tolkien. Okay? Seriously, there is respite and solace for the soul. When we're talking about the troubled human soul, nobody knew anything more about the troubled human soul than Professor Tolkien. And this is something we all fundamentally understand. You know that there is therapeutic powers within Professor Tolkien's work. There's something healing and satisfying and deeply interesting about his works. But there's also the version of his works that have been adapted. You know, some people find solace and comfort when they turn on the Lord of the Rings movie, and they're listening to Howard Shore's music. And yet again, the beautiful musical motifs of Howard Shore representing Arda in such an extraordinary way. And so it's really fascinating that there's these qualities of therapeutic qualities, I would call them. I really like turning to Tolkien for that quality in Professor Tolkien's work. Takes the pressure off, makes my troubled soul feel a little lighter, and I get some perspective, and I feel that the healing is going on because I get some much needed perspective. And some great things about Professor Tolkien's work is when they're adapted to beautiful music, beautiful pieces of music and artistry, and even, dare I say, one of those things that takes the stress off of me is excellent board gaming. I'm that kind of a nerd, so we're going to have a little bit of a bounce around today, talking about the Lord of the Rings and its many iterations in classic tabletop board games. Nothing could be better to give yourself an hour and a half of distraction from all the stuff that's going on in the world, as if you had friends around the table at all times. And I don't. I mean, I'm home by myself right now. But when you have friends with you, and you don't just want to have the Tolkien experience by yourself while you're reading the book. It's not just, I'm reading and I'm reading and I'm reading, and this is, absolutely wonderful cathartic experience to read what Frodo is going through, what Samwise is going through. Well, no, the other part of this really is the joy of sharing the board gaming experience, because then Tolkien gets to be interactive with everybody in the room. That's why the dynamic is different for me. So going way, way back in the Wayback Machine, we're going to look at all of the games, the board games that have been published with the actual title, The Lord of the Rings. There's so many good ones. You want to go back to the 1970s, and that's where this story begins. This is the board game that I'm talking about. It was published in 1978. It has the imprint on it of Tolkien Enterprises here inside. And I'm telling you, this is board gaming antique hour. I feel like I should be doing the restoration show. You know, that show on BBC where they restore beautiful old antique things? okay? This is the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings that we're talking about. All these designs here came from the 1978 release. And believe it or not, all of the rules, the entire rules of the game, are printed on the inside box lid. What an extraordinary game. So super cool. I just have to tell you guys about this. All of the board games that I've been through in my life have never had as much wear and tear and as much devotion as this little 10-year-old kid gave this board game when this movie came out. It was all about this. It is a ruthless, interesting, fight to the finish kind of board game. The play style is not at all reminiscent of some of the more complex resource management systems that we have in modern games, or card management is as close as you can describe it as. The board game, I'm going to reach over there and I'm going to grab it real quick and I'm going to come back to the camera. The actual game board is a unique design with a geometric layout of the map of Middle Earth as it was cast in hexagons. It's really cool. And, there's really something fun about sitting down with your childhood friends or even your adult friends. Thank you very much, okay? This cool game has you, as a player, moving your individual piece across all these hexes to try to get from the beginning to the end. And the first person who reaches the end wins. Like Sorry or Parcheesi or other classic games that is just a race to the finish. It really is who can get there first. And that's really all there is to it. Very basic game design. And yet, super cool. Ruthless. Really ruthless kind of game. Give me 2 seconds and I'm going to show it to you right quick, okay? I know I should have prepared this before and had this ready to go behind the camera, but we put this together rather hastily. Take a look at this. The graphic design elements of this are ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous. So nerd out with me, boys and girls, and look. I'm serious. Look at this map of Middle Earth. Oh my gosh, isn't this hilarious? Okay, I don't know what this looks like on camera, but seriously, you start here at the very, very, very top, and you have to work your way all the way down from the top and get all the way across Middle Earth and get to the end. As soon as you get to the end, first, right here, and you have a ring, one plastic ring left with you, and it's just ridiculous. You win the game just because you beat everyone to the finish line. It's very 70s. It is so 70s. I had to go find another copy on eBay just so I could have backup spare parts and spare cards. Yes, it is the beehives. I love that you said that. It's the beehives of Middle Earth. It's ridiculous. Okay, who had the license at that time? Again, we talk about these things often on this broadcast, but it says Saul Zentz Enterprises. It says Tolkien Enterprises right here. Excuse me. It doesn't say Saul Zentz. My bad. It was published by Milton Bradley. Oh wow. It's a Milton Bradley game, an American company based in Springfield, Massachusetts. Springfield. This is the old license that Saul Zentz had with the Tolkien estate. Now the new games that have the title The Lord of the Rings had to wait 20 or 30 years. It was a very, very, very long time after the publication of that game before Fantasy Flight Games, Hasbro, whoever they became, because one got absorbed by the other. Then there was Reiner Knizia publishing this game in the year 2000. That's right. It took a very, very long time before this excellent board game that was designed by Reiner Knizia became one of the most popular and interesting cooperative board games ever. I'm just gonna barrel right ahead. The artwork by John Howe is so amazing. This artwork was done by John on this game, and all these game boards are so beautiful. I'm going to pull one or two of the game boards out just to show you how exquisite this artwork is. He was doing this artwork at the same time that he was doing work for Peter Jackson. Here's one of the main boards. Can you guys see this okay? This is the game board for Moria, with this climactic battle scene between Gandalf. Oh yeah, he did War of the Ring as well. Thanks, Justin R. Justin B. Justin B is correct. The War of the Ring did come out and also had John Howe's illustration, but the actual licensing of the words "The Lord of the Rings" was not available on any tabletop regular board game from the time of 1978 up until the year when this came out. It was really, really, really a long time. And there were other games that had been published by Iron Crown Enterprises. Obviously, there was the War of the Ring, other stuff like that, but it was such a long, long time until another board game came out. This is so cool. It's the opposite. In game design, it is not hyper competitive like the 1970s game. This is a very co-op game. Everybody is interested in sharing their best resources and their best ideas so they can collectively beat the mechanism of the game itself. And I have the first edition with this cool poly One Ring of Power, and I've got all this original stuff. It's so interesting. I had to wait that long for another Lord of the Rings game to come along. I mean, that was a really long time to wait. And it was such a difference in design. Reiner Knizia was not finished with Middle-earth. Let me tell you this. Not long after that, also illustrated by John Howe, came out this fantastic little two-person game. This is called The Lord of the Rings, The Confrontation. Worthwhile, if you can ever grab a copy of this, it's really cool. Really, really, really cool. I'm loving this. I'm loving this game. It's two persons trying to do a miniature type of Stratego. And if anybody remembers the old classic of Stratego, that is a hidden tile placement memory strategy game. All of the tiles are hidden against the opponent. The power of the tiles are hidden from view from the opponent, like a chess match where you don't really know the powers of the chess pieces. So Stratego, if it were crystallized and brought back down to its super duper raw essence, would be this, the Confrontation. It's such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful game. I hate to overstate things, but the simplicity of Reiner Knizia's game designs really win the day for me. Now, talk about abstraction. Remember the the hexagon board game that I just showed you a couple of minutes ago? And you're thinking, oh, wow, what a weird abstract, geometric overlay to make it the beehives of Middle-earth. It is what that looks like. But the abstraction of the map, it works. It actually fundamentally works within the game itself, where you're limited to a 5-card hand, just 5 cards, and you're trying to advance as quickly as you can and beat the other players. But that abstraction is playful and very 70s. But here we come fast forward to 2000, 2001, and then we get a different abstraction of Middle-earth. And this is it. This is wild. At the top of the board here, in this corner, is Mordor, where the powers of Sauron exist. And many of the pieces begin here. Down at the other corner of the board, in all these just abstract rectangles, this is just the Shire, where the good player begins. 2 players against one another, good versus evil. They're on this board. It is just abstract rectangles. It is the strongest abstraction of what I would call a geographic overlay of any of the games I've seen. Super cool. And yet, what's interesting about it is that you're just moving along your little pieces on the chessboard. It literally is like a chessboard. And the good player has pieces with the secret numbers behind them. And the other person does not know. Well, here's Aragorn, and here's Legolas, okay, as an example. And Here's Saruman as another example. So there's the light player and the dark player against one another, and they're moving these pieces around on these abstract areas of Middle-earth. The good player is trying to advance and get Frodo all the way to the opposite corner of the board. And hey, Otaku Senpai, don't get ahead of me. I'm going to jump deep, deep into the conversation with Journeys in Middle-earth when we get there. But yeah, I'm telling you, this is a super cool game because you have to work hard at memorizing a distinct algebraic subset. I mean, there is only a small subset of available characters for the good side and the bad side. There's a cheat sheet, a very useful cheat sheet, and this little reference card makes a lot of the puzzle solving a lot easier in figuring out what the different individual powers are. And, I kind of love this game for the elegance of its design and its simplicity. And thanks again, obviously, to Reiner Knizia for inventing something really beautiful and always fun to replay. That's something I cannot emphasize enough. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get to all the big news of the day and at the end of the show, we'll talk about Green Dragon gossip and all the stuff that is going on Twitter. Before I address all that, I just want to tell you that the best way to turn off all of the turmoil of the outside world is to sit down with J.R.R. Tolkien. And if you've got a friend with you and you want to play a really beautiful, intelligent game of strategy and memorization, then these board games cannot be beat. If you're by yourself and you're enjoying reading and analyzing Tolkien, excellent. But I'm on this board game kick lately, and it's been fueled by a lot of great new published games, and we're going to get to that. Excuse me. It all leads up to what's being published right now. Also from Fantasy Flight Games, and illustrated by Ted Naismith, we have The Hobbit. Anybody remember this? The Hobbit. This was a kid's board game that had all these goofy pieces and shiny little round baubles. Anybody remember this game? Here it is. This is a kid's game called The Hobbit. It is really, definitely for the 8-year-old and the 11-year-old kids who want to play board games. It is not at all complex. It has a great simplicity to it, and it's kind of fun because this big oversized game board, which is too big for its own good, and you get to move around and collect a lot of tokens and collect jewels. Collect a lot of jewels in your bag. It's a very straightforward game with the smallest minimum requirement of resource management. And look, okay, the basic kind of resource management game, it starts with Settlers of Catan. Some people might say Monopoly. Monopoly is also a currency handling and resource management game, but I think Settlers of Catan is the best example. But this little Hobbit game here, the resources that you're managing are not anything more than these cute little shiny glass baubles. There's lots and lots of glass beads, like 100 glass beads in this bag, and they represent jewels that the dragon has stolen. You get to walk around the little game board, and you and your kids, I would definitely play this game with your kids or with your cousin's kids, because, I mean, I never go back to this unless I'm at a party with people who can't play complicated games. It is, those events where you're like, keep it simple, right? So whenever you want to play the simplest J.R.R. Tolkien board game, this is the one. It's super simple. It's really kind of charming. Some of the exercises in the game include stealing the jewels, the little glass beads that you steal from the dragon, which has a plastic centerpiece in the middle of the board, which is supposed to look like Erebor, the Lonely Mountain, excuse me. It's really kind of cute. It's a fun game, but very simple. It doesn't have any teeth. It does not have any teeth at all, and therefore, in my rating, it doesn't have a lot of replayability. I forgot to mention that really, really beautiful Reiner Knizia Lord of the Rings cooperative game that is so fantastic that came out in the year 2000. I forgot to mention the amazing, amazing expansions. There were a couple of them, a couple of beautiful, beautiful expansions that came with that 2000 Lord of the Rings Fantasy Flight game. One was called Friends and Foes. It has more beautiful board game artwork from John Howe. Cannot get enough of John Howe's paintings on these game boards, and it's just so cool. The expansions are probably difficult to find. I'm sure they're all out of print now, so good luck on eBay if you want to find something like that. It's not like everything that came out with the Lord of the Rings name was actually that, good. Some of it was mediocre, and some of it was too hard to digest. Like, I don't have a copy of War of the Ring, but you can look it up for yourselves. Look up War of the Ring board game. There's an excellent couple of YouTube videos, and those guys covered it completely when they talk about how infuriatingly complex the War of the Ring is. Legendary for being the most complex and frustrating. I mean, it's, whoa, times 10, it's times 20 more times more complicated than any board game needs to be, but it's like the ultimate version of Risk. Risk amped up to the 20th power, set in Middle Earth, and that's War of the Ring. Okay? But I don't have a copy of that to show you. But, there was another licensed game. It was called a living card game. This was the Lord of the Rings living card game. You know who published it? It was Fantasy Flight Games. That's right. Fantasy Flight Games, going back to the Middle Earth Enterprises logo. See the logo on the back? Ron, I love you, Ron. And Ron, you're right. It's everybody's favorite and most deeply, deeply satisfying strategy game of all the board games that are out there. Ron, I'm with you. I get it. And I thank you for saying that. That's very egalitarian of you. I appreciate that. It is a very satisfying game if you can take the hard dive into the deep end of the pool. If you have the aptitude and the bandwidth as a board gamer for that, then yes, yes, yes. It is so satisfying. It delivers the goods, but you got to be really patient with it. But this one was a headache that I never got over, and it became such a headache that I never went back to play it after a couple of months of struggling with the expansions and struggling with the mechanics of this game. The living card game was really, I was always a big fan of that trading card game that Decipher had back in the 2000s. Remember the Decipher game? Well, this was a card game that they came out with. It was called The Lord of the Rings, the Living Card Game. And it was a two-player, battle it out kind of cooperative thing. You, the players, were working against a really tiny deck of cards that had difficult things for you to resolve before you could get through the end of the game. And I got all these expansions from this. I got lots of little packs of cards and expansions for this. It never got any easier to win the game. It became that type of a construct where you knew you would spend an hour or two aggressively playing with it, and you would always lose. You would always lose. And let me tell you that there's no psychological payoff. There's no sweet, sweet endorphins that kick in on a game like that, where you've burned a hard brainwave for a couple of hours on this thing, and you know you're going to lose. That was the Lord of the Rings, the living card game. If you see any of these products on the web, they have the little LCG design on it in the corner. LCG was a living card game. There was a variety of other things that came out from Westeros. They licensed a big, broad level Game of Thrones living card game in the same vein as this living card game. And it was such a headache. It became a thing where you knew you'd lose every damn time. I wasn't into it after a while. I really wasn't. And then for a long time, I got distracted by this. And this became the most satisfying asymmetrical, and I know it's not Tolkien. I'm sorry, kids. Intermission. We're going to take an intermission. I know this is not J.R.R. Tolkien, but this became my obsession. Disney villainous, and it still is an obsession for me. It's an asymmetrical card management game. It's highly satisfying. To play a villain, you pick one villain, like, Cruella de Vil, or you want to capture 99 puppies and then you win. And maybe you want to play Captain Hook. If you can find Peter Pan and take him over to the pirate ship and cut his throat, then you win the game. It's like, you have to get to your villain's narrative objective that is from their movie. And it's really brilliant game design. Brilliant game design. So much so, and we're going to bring Tolkien back into this, trust me. The expansions came out with Disney Villainous, even to the point where they brought out the guy from the Black Cauldron. Yeah, my dude, the Horned King. That was the time when Disney animators went all sword and sorcery, and they were trying to cash in on that hyperactive popularity of Dungeons and Dragons at the time when they produced the Black Cauldron. So the Disney Villainous game has every villain you can imagine, from the 1930s, Pegleg Pete, and there's the Horned King from the Black Cauldron, right on up to Gaston. And the new expansion came out with Syndrome from The Incredibles. And all these great villains come out. So they expanded it. Marvel got the license. Ravensburger was having such success with this game. They've got the Marvel version that has Thanos, or you can pick Ultron, and fulfill your little 30-card puzzle. And if you're the first person to win the game, then you resolve the game with your card set. Your card management play style is unique. I mean, Thanos has a different style of play than Loki. And the Loki expansion came out. It was really beautiful design. All that stuff leads up to the Star Wars Villainous that was announced. Juicy good. As soon as that news broke a couple of weeks ago, the game nerd in me was like, wow, I'm all about this. Marvel villains, I love it. They keep expanding. It's a really cool asymmetrical design. And I thought, wow, the Disney villains keep getting better and better and better. Really great design. And to be quite honest, when I talk about these games, the most appealing thing about it to me is how the personalities who are with you in the room, the person or persons, the people sitting at the table with you, a good game design will bring out their personalities the way a cooperative game will bring out good personalities of the way people share ideas and resources together, and the way a really vicious game of take that, like this. The villainous game is entirely built around, an F you type of card play, take that. And the other person, it brings out this delightful energy in the way people play. It's kind of funny. There's a Star Wars Villainous that will come out later on this year. And I am interested if it's going to, it's going to have Darth Vader and General Grievous. And there will even be a playable villain from the Mandalorian TV series. Moff Gideon is going to be one of the characters you can play. And, of course, Kylo Ren from the sequels. All these villains are coming out for Star Wars to play. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if they actually had a Lord of the Rings license for that board game? And I've been entertaining myself with these ideas for maybe a little bit too long. Maybe I've entertained myself too much with these ideas. Princess Toy Nerd. Yeah, they do have the they renewed all the license for the Black Cauldron books. They were written by Lloyd Alexander. The book series is called The Chronicles of Prydain. Yes, Disney, about 6 years ago or 7 years ago, actively renewed their legal purchase of the intellectual property. So it is within their wheelhouse to be making the Black Cauldron live-action fantasy series, or it could be an animated series. We don't know what they're going to do. But yes, Princess Toy Nerd, Disney renewed their interest in the fantasy series, which is rather close. You know, in this alignment of Chronicles of Narnia, Chronicles of Prydain, and The Hobbit, and The Lord of the Rings, you're very much in the wheelhouse, especially with Lloyd Alexander giving us tales of Welsh legends and all the Welsh stuff that seeps into the Black Cauldron story. Not to mention that, you know, Gurgi was a reasonable, you know, analog for Smeagol a lot of the time, but that conversation is neither here nor there. What's interesting to me is if they do come out with a Lord of the Rings or a Hobbit villainous, there's a kind of a finite list of the kind of villains that could be playable characters within the game. Obviously, Sauron, the Witch King, but going further back, maybe the Great Goblin, or the Goblin King within the Misty Mountains from The Hobbit. He could be a playable character. Smaug, yeah, big old bad boy Morgoth, but they're not going to get licensing for Morgoth to be a playable character. It's like, you know, there's just maybe the mouth of Sauron, maybe different characters, you know, Bill Ferny. Maybe Bill Ferny could be a playable villain in the game. I don't know. But I thought about it, and then I had to dismiss the idea because I don't think there's a stock library of Lord of the Rings villains that could be, you know, brought in and, you know, made the game, you know, have the longevity that that game would need to be in that version. But bringing us up now to the modern age, the very, very best thing. I've showed you a bunch of stuff from Fantasy Flight Games, but the best thing that they've come up with ever was this license for Journeys in Middle-earth. We're going to end our review of board games that have the name The Lord of the Rings. This is the one. You want to get away from the world for hours, and I'm talking days and days of incredible crystallized RPG. This is it. Boy, I'm telling you. Journeys in Middle-earth, which does have the main title of licensing. We're talking about licensing yet again. Sorry, kids. They have the title The Lord of the Rings. I have not been as satisfied with a game since this, back in 1978, when this was the board game that had the title The Lord of the Rings. Nothing has come along in all the decades and decades that has scratched the gamer's itch the way that Journeys in Middle-earth. It's a knockout of game design. I love it, and I'll tell you why I love it. You want to run a good RPG, but what if you don't have a dungeon master? If you don't have a DM available, or a story lead, a game master, you don't have to worry about that. In this game of Journeys in Middle-earth, the app, the artificial intelligence that has been written by these talented game designers over at the publishing company, again, Fantasy Flight Games, they have written in long form these really cool and in-depth travel and adventures in Middle-earth. The board game doesn't exist at all. It's a mystery set of tiles. The tiles come out to play on the game table surface, one at a time, as you start to explore the mystery of the map. So you're playing the game, and on your phone or on your tablet, maybe it's on your tablet or on your laptop, you're running the game. The game master is leading you through all the monsters and all the encounters that you have with enemy groups, and it leads you tile by tile through Middle-earth, and it starts to bring out these tile pieces, and it lays them out like this and this, and you don't know when they're going to come together, and then slowly oh yes, we're back in the beehive. We're back in the beehive of Middle-earth, and maybe that's why I'm so into this. No, I'm joking. But the geometry of these tiles come together and they get pushed against each other. And every single time you play the game, it auto-generates these maps in very different ways. So you replay the game, and all of your miniatures are moving across another differently generated map out of lots and lots of these cool game tiles. And it's the fog is lifted. And as you go through the areas of mountains, forests, ancient rivers, the game is very slowly revealing its monsters, its booby traps, puzzles that you have to encounter. And you have to test yourself against the certain tests for your skill set. And here's the thing. There are no polyhedral dice. It is the only time I've ever seen a role-playing game. You take on the role of Aragorn or Gandalf. You take on the role of Bilbo, perhaps. In this RPG, there are no dice rolling. There are no polyhedral plastic dice running around on the board at all. And you must say to yourself out loud, gasp, gasp, how can that be true? How can you play a good old-fashioned dungeon crawler without any dice to roll? And I'll tell you quite simply, they have decks of cards that create a set of skills, and successes and failures are measured on this miniature stack of cards. It might be anywhere between 18 to 25 to 30 cards. Again, it's a card management style of game, and you keep flipping the cards over to see if you pass or fail tests of might, or a test of wisdom, or a test of spirit. Whatever the skill set is, you're not rolling dice to do a skill check. You're flipping the cards to do a skill check. It is a very unique design. It is so satisfying, and boy, have they come out with so many expansions. You guys are going to love this game. If you ever want to get into a good RPG and you don't have somebody around who's going to be a dungeon master, then first thing that you see right here, it says, download this. It says, stop. You open up the game, and it says, stop, please download the app. You run the app on your phone or on your laptop, and it will be the dungeon master for you. Sometimes I'm amazed at how they keep refreshing ideas. There was a major expansion for this that came out well over a year ago, and here it is. Excuse me, everybody. This is Journeys in Middle-earth Shadowed Paths. This was like a $80 expansion that came out. This had new playable characters like Dis. That's right, Thorin's sister. You could play a female dwarf, Dis. You could play Gandalf. You could play Balin, and all these cool dwarven powers were Varking Runesong. I'm serious. The powers of the dwarves are in these cards and in these character designs. Like, it's so cool. So here is Journeys in Middle-earth, big major expansion. It was called Shadowed Paths. And then much more recently, they came out with an expansion called Spreading War. It has the coolest miniatures in it. Here's the Spreading War mini. Haven't even opened it up yet. Spreading War is like another big expansion. And look, there's Mumakil. This one has miniatures you can paint. If you get into the deep dive of, oh, I want to paint my miniatures, then this is so cool. They have giant siege towers. And I mean, in terms of what miniatures look like, these are siege towers. And there's Oliphants in this game. And it has brought me months and months, especially during lockdowns, during COVID. Thank you, Fantasy Flight Games. And I want to say personally, this little gamer nerd wants to say thank you to all the designers and all the people who created Journeys in Middle-earth, because it's been a lifesaver. It's been super cool. Thank you for giving a real punch, you pack a lot of meat and potatoes. Nobody can say no to taters. There's such ballast, right ballast for an empty stomach when you play Journeys in Middle-earth. I got nothing but praise for it. It's super cool. And that concludes our quick little, 45, well, I did about 40 minutes touring all these wonderful Lord of the Rings board games. When you're a gamer nerd, you look for those things that trigger replayability. Magic the Gathering has a lot of replayability for a lot of fans because of the expansions and the powers of the cards that keep diversifying and all interesting strategies and effects of card play that come out with with Pokemon cards and Magic the Gathering. So there's a lot of replayability. I'm an old school Magic the Gathering player. Trust me on that. The Disney villainous and the Marvel villainous has a lot of replayability because you keep wanting to mix different villains and you keep wanting to have a more vicious play style to find that evil little girl Snow White. You want to get your poison apples and you want to hand her that card that says take a bite, and as soon as you feed that poison apple to her and she's gone, so satisfying. That juicy satisfaction that never happens for the villains, because in all the Disney movies the heroes always win. So it's like that. I mean, honestly, that's why the game is so satisfying. And there's a lot of replayability with Journeys in Middle Earth. Lots of replayability. I love that game so much. So everybody's learned a lot about these games, but in the future, there's a new deal that is happening where the Saul Zaentz company, right? Can't even talk English. Saul Zaentz company has put up all their licensing. That means there might be a whole new species of board games and tabletop games that might come out in the near future after all the dust is settled on the contracts and the lawyers are happy with the signatures on the paperwork and it's all done. I mean, why did we get all new Funko Pops? We got lots and lots and lots of Funko Pops. Literally, there were tons of them that came out. And they started coming out in when? 2019? I'm trying to look at this. They all started coming out. There it is, the Saul Zaentz company. All these new Funko Pops came out that were all Lord of the Rings specific because of new licensing deals. So for all the gamer nerds out there, just be patient. It won't be long. There will be a whole new wave, a big new wave. Whether they're good or bad, I don't know. But there are game designers hard at work out there, and I trust that they're going to be putting the pedal to the metal on their design efforts when it comes to creating new games in the J.R.R. Tolkien verse of Arda, in the Arda verse. Forgive me for calling it that. And now I need to get to Green Dragon Gossip. Everybody, thank you for being with us live on Torn Tuesday. I've given you my best advice on some wonderful, retro. There's some brand new ones and there's some retro Lord of the Rings games out there. Definitely, if you want a cooperative game that brings people together in the spirit of fellowship, get the Reiner Knizia Lord of the Rings that was published in the year 2000. That's the one to go to. Best co-op game ever. And now, here is the rumor mills that we have obviously, we've obviously posted this on Twitter, on the OneRing.net official Twitter account. We said something about an unexpected new composer suddenly appears. And what we meant by that when we tweeted that was, think about this for a minute. There was a clue. Did anybody in the chat room pick up on the clue? An unexpected composer arrives. I'm looking in the chat right now. Let's see. All right, here it is. No one's got the clue yet, but it was Conrad Pope. Conrad Pope is the orchestrator. He's the man who is the orchestrator on the Hobbit trilogy, working for New Line Cinema, Peter Jackson. Conrad Pope suddenly showed up at Air Studios, the beautiful, gorgeous, high-end, most high-tech sound equipment. What's going on at Air Studios? Well, that's intriguing. Why did Conrad Pope show up? Well, we're hearing rumors that the orchestrator who worked on the Hobbit films, he's there at the Air Studios in England. The rumor keeps circulating. Again, this is unconfirmed, but what we know so far is that only Bear McCreary And Bear McCreary is officially confirmed. Pretty officially confirmed, Bear McCreary is the only person who's been at that same studio recording sessions. Why is Conrad Pope showing up? Interesting question. I'm very interested in these questions. I am going to speculate no further on the questions, but I'm fascinated by the questions. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. It is fascinating to me. What's Conrad Pope showing up for? I wonder. But this is what we're hearing. We're also hearing in the rumor mill, we'll have to speculate perhaps, maybe it should be further said that Howard Shore has not been anywhere near Air Studios. That's not what we're saying. All right, double check your facts, okay? Even in the realm of gossip, I want to double check the gossip. Okay, there's no news or rumors about Mr. Shore showing up at the Air Studios, but suddenly Conrad Pope, who positively has worked in the past with Howard Shore, but now Conrad Pope has shown up, but only Bear McCreary confirmed has been at Air Studios, but he leaked that himself by the photo that he posted on Twitter. Okay, moving on to the next bit of Green Dragon gossip, okay? Oh wait, before I move on, let's take a look at the chat, okay? I don't know what that accent was. I don't know. It was no, it was not Hercule Poirot. Although I do enjoy a good Agatha Christie mystery, and Hercule Poirot is such an interesting character. But no, I was just being stupid. Sorry. I was just having a moment of unconnected goofiness. Please indulge me while things get goofy around here. Next rumor is that Lord of the Rings is not shooting at Shepperton for the entire season. That's weird. Okay, what is it? Shepperton Studios is world famous. Shepperton Studios is where George Lucas filmed much of Star Wars films. Shepperton was available and famous for Jim Henson when Jim Henson was creating The Dark Crystal. When they were filming in England, so much of Dark Crystal filmed at Shepperton. Shepperton is not being used at all by Amazon Studios for the filming of season 2. What does that mean? Well, we have to look further behind the lines. Amazon, we hear, they're building big sound stages, not one, for One Ring. They're not building 3 new sound stages, not for 3 rings. Sorry, Varking, they're not even building 7 sound stages. I don't know where I'm going with this, but they're building 9. Yes, the rumor is that 9 huge, new, professional, brand new, top of the line motion picture and television sound stages. 9 of them are being built, They're under construction with a total of 1 million available square feet. Read that again between the lines, kids. They're not using Shepperton for this season. They're building 9 new sound stages with a total of 1 million square feet available shooting space. It won't be ready because of the issues of construction. In a post-COVID world in the United Kingdom, because of the issues of construction, it will not be ready for at least a year. Wow. Okay? The biggest sound stages that are available in the United Kingdom to handle large sets, big, large sets. They're currently filming Good Omens season 2 for Amazon, okay? And Anansi Boys, which has both Lenny Henry and Whoopi Goldberg. Both of these are adaptations of Neil Gaiman, by the way. We're talking about my favorite comic book author, the Sandman author. Neil Gaiman he's got The Sandman in production on Netflix, but over on Amazon Prime, he's got Anansi Boys and Good Omens, which he co-wrote with Terry Pratchett, of course. But that's being filmed in Scotland. So Scotland sound stages are busy. They're filming the 2 shows for Anansi Boys and Good Omens, Part 2, Season 2. So where are they going to film? They're building 9 new sound stages for Amazon. Where are they going to film? The rumors are they're not using Shepperton for the entire Season 2. Where are they going to film? Where are they going to film? I don't know what's going on, but these are the rumors, and I'm letting you guys have the rumors as we get them. All right, let's chew on this. Yeah, Orion's Angel says 9 sound stages for mortal directors. Funny. Yeah, yes, Matthias. Neil Gaiman is the best. This is intriguing. And yes, Orion's Angel, they are using the technology from The Mandalorian with the ILM digital projection tent that creates an entire digital projection world in that setting. That ILM tech that they're using, the LCD panels and the projection panels that do all that trickery, yeah, they've bought a couple of those from what I've heard. All right, moving on. Okay. I'm intrigued by all that news, but we're going to move on from that. I don't know what to say, except it has been 80 days. 80 days since we got that last burst of Lord of the Rings marketing. Okay? What is going on? Fans are thirsty. What is going on? How many months to go? How many months until September 2 when they launch the TV series The Rings of Power? Well, it's only 4 months to go, kids. 4 months to go, all right? Star Wars Day is tomorrow. It's going to be May 4th. And then there's, let me do the math on that. June, July, August, September. Only 4 months until the launch of the show. Where is the next big marketing push going to be realized? It wasn't realized at WonderCon in Southern California. Who knows? Are they going to do something in late summer at San Diego Comic-Con? We do speculate that's what's going to happen. But the Rings of Power thing is, it's interesting because we're all starving for more information. Then when they do put out a marketing thing, like when they put out that embarrassing video with the influencers, and then they pulled it and got rid of it. You know, they got rid of that. It's like, what we really want is to sit down and talk to the writers and the directors and have, across the table, Q&A with J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. That kind of marketing stuff where we're getting glimpses into the creative process. That's the kind of meat and potatoes that I'm sure the fandom would be much more satisfied with, instead of other marketing schemes. I think that getting down and dirty and personal, up close and personal, with the people who are responsible for creating this adaptation would go a long, long way in the satisfaction department of, fans being pleased with that kind of information and letting them start to guess and speculate and, hypothesize what amazing things and what interesting things are going on. But we're hearing rumors also from Fellowship of Fans about a dark elf who seems to have some kind of prosthetic makeup that has been dialed down. Really interesting leaks that are being circulated by other people at other sites. But in terms of giving us the real meat and potatoes, the fans are wondering what's going to happen next. Now, moving on from Rings of Power. Okay, yeah, we do want all the details. I'm looking at the chat just to say hi to everybody. Cecilia says, let me tell you, we had more details on the Sandman fandom. And Otaku Senpai says the same thing that I say. Hopefully, the next announcement won't tick me off. Oh yeah, and Troy says, the Dark Elf discussion by Fellowship of Fans reminded me of Maeglin. Yes, it also reminded me of Maeglin as well. Very much reminded me of Maeglin. But and also Fellowship of Fans speculated that Farazan having a son, I don't know about that. Let's see what kind of palace intrigue. All right, you know, next week, I think next week on Tuesday, we might get into a whole nother full 1 hour to talk about and to speculate on what kind of Numenorian palace intrigue might happen. Okay, we're getting wind of new secondary characters that are coming in that aren't part of what we know from the canon of the books. We know that they can go pretty far afield with condensing the timeline of when certain people were alive and when they weren't alive to juxtapose putting people together in the timeline. So we know that they can get pretty squishy with the timeline. We know it's going to be squishy. They're going to squish it together. I don't have a better adjective for you, and I don't like it. I personally do not like it at all. Let that go on the record that somebody at the onering.net said, I don't like this, whatever. The concept of squishing the timeline when you're dealing with immortal characters, that's kind of a slippery, weird slope to be on. But we'll talk another day about palace intrigue. A lot of meat and potatoes was on Game of Thrones season by season by season because the writers were able to extend intrigue and spies and, Littlefinger. Who is he loyal to? Who is he not loyal to? Are these people going to backstab somebody? Oh my gosh, I never thought the Red Wedding would happen. I thought they could be trusted. No, I thought they could be trusted. All right, seriously. Game of Thrones rode a lot of mileage on that particular vehicle. Let's put it under the umbrella of palace intrigue. Not going to lie, it kept me tuned in. I was also tuned in and was a faithful Game of Thrones watcher with all my friends, having a watch party every Sunday, because there was always the question of, what is Arya going to learn to hide her identity when she gets to become that professional assassin and gets to wreak revenge on the list of people she wants to have her revenge on? Arya Stark. Anybody? Arya Stark? Anybody? Okay. I was on that train of who can be trusted and who cannot be trusted. And over again, the writers in the writer's room got to play with that material. And now in Numenor, in Middle-earth, switch off the Westeros and switch off the Esteros. Turn off all that George R.R. Martin stuff, but keep it in front of mind while you think about Numenorian palace intrigue and why these characters and secondary characters that Tolkien never originally created, they're all going to be drummed up. Okay? I'm letting you guys know so you can be prepared mentally to handle this. For an intelligent, thirsty, audience that wants a lot of dark fantasy, sword and sorcery with a lot of intrigue, and can you trust that person? Maybe you can't trust that person. And then gasp, I thought they were going to survive, but the person we trusted most killed them. Gasp. All right, we're going to get mountains of that. Okay? So be prepared, everyone. We're going to get a lot of that. So, being honest with you, I don't know anything about the details, but I do know in a vague way what they're going to try and do. They're going to bring in, like this rumor from Fellowship of Fans that Ar-Pharazôn would have a son, or other characters that would be competitive against the faithful. You're going to have 1/5 of the island with Elendil and his sons, Isildur and Anarion, and we're going to have people on the island on the other 4 points of the star. It's a 5-pointed star. The island of Numenor is a 5-pointed star. The faithful, who remain faithful to Valar and remain in touch with the Noldor, are going to be stuck on one quadrant. Actually, it's not a quadrant. It's a, I don't know, a quintant. A quintant? Is that a word? 1/5 of the island, while the other 4/5 of the island are going to be worshiping Morgoth because they're under the influence of Sauron. And there's going to be people in the Númenórean royal palace that are, some are secretive and some are not. Some can be trusted and some are not. In all these interpersonal relationships with Elendil and his 2 sons, while people on the island of Númenor get closer and closer to civil war, or they get closer to a spiritual breakdown between people in Númenor, where some of them are going to stay secretively faithful to the Valar and not admit that they're faithful to the Valar, you know, and there's going to be the building of ships, where ships are being built secretly so that the king doesn't know that they're, you know, all this stuff is going to be happening, and it's going to take many, many years. So trust me, we'll get a really good Torn Tuesday show talking about all that palace intrigue. We'll get into that. But as long as you guys know ahead of time, that's what they're going to do. And they're going to create characters out of whole cloth, and they're going to blend them in with characters we are extremely familiar with. And that's what's going to happen. So what's the question here? There's also the question of who would have been the mother, presumably not Tar Miriel. Yeah, exactly. Oh boy, a lot of questions. Okay, let's see. Troy was saying, it sounds like the Romeo and Juliet type arc would be used as a foil to explore the faithful and the Kingsman tensions. Whoa, intriguing. Tensions between the Kingsmen and tensions between the faithful, as if they were drawn out between the Montagues and the Capulets. An unwanted, unexpected romance between star-crossed lovers whose very divergent family alignments cause chaos and drama. Well, I don't know. That's just as likely as anything. That's just as likely as anything. But let's just say, Dan, hello Dan, welcome to the chat. In one of the appendices, Tolkien is clear that not many records of the Second Age survived, so Tolkien intentionally made the Second Age vague. Okay, great. Let's roll with that. That's cool. Let's roll with the other conceit. The other conceit that most of the Third Age was incredibly well documented. At least those events of the Third Age were documented by the elves and by Bilbo. Bilbo's documentation of what happened during the War of the Ring, passing that red book on to Frodo, and thus the red book passing on to Samwise, is a beautiful, beautiful conceit. I love that conceit, and that's how the Lord of the Rings rests in a beautiful, beautiful spot. And cinematically, Peter Jackson was very wise to begin his Hobbit trilogy and his Lord of the Rings trilogy with the bookends of Bilbo and Frodo writing everything down in the book. I get that. But yeah, the conceit of the Second Age, going along with that, is that the hobbits did not know their letters, since all the proto-hobbits, even before they started to migrate over the Misty Mountains, all of those early versions of what would become the halflings of the Shire, none of them were literate. They did not read or write. So they are obviously going to have a play field in the TV show, because they can play around with the conceit that the hobbits or the proto-hobbits were really there, but as tribal wandering people that never had a written history, they only had oral histories. They're going to use that conceit to explain why proto-hobbits are and the Harfoots are in the show. And I like the idea. Therefore, following along with that, I do like the idea that if the Númenórean line of records were destroyed when the island continent was destroyed, so there's no Númenórean point of view of what happened in the Second Age, what survives is the point of view of Elendil and his royal line. That's what survives. And the elves The elves had their own partiality to recording history. We know this is true. The elves had their own partiality in recording their own events in the first and second age. So with a minimal amount of elvish records and no Numenorean records except for what survived with Elendil and Elendil's point of view of what happened, you get this interesting second age blending. The proto-hobbits have no written history. The Numenoreans aren't going to have any written history. If the writers of the show use a different bookend device, we might get a different point of view. And who is telling this overall story in their TV series? Who knows what we're going to get? But I'm game to give it a try, even though I do not like the squishiness. It's kind of like when Stephen Colbert was using the word truthiness. Well, the truthiness was one thing, but now we've got the squishiness, the entire temporal existence, the temporal timeline of Second Age is going to be so squishy now. Even though I don't like that, I'm still willing to go along and suspend disbelief for a couple of weeks, and let's get a couple of episodes into the series, and let's see what they're doing and what they're trying to build. Let's see what they're trying to do here, okay? So now that we've gotten all that stuff talked about, I just want to lay it to rest that it's 4 months. It's 4 months away. I am still hugely, hugely ambivalent and excited and doubtful at the same time. That is the nature of the word. Conflicted. But still, open mind and open heart and open to Tolkien coming to another wave of culture, and let's just see what happens. You know, in the world of popular culture, I mean, we're going to have another wave of Tolkien. And that means a huge wave of readership. That means more younglings, the younglings that survived the massacre at the Jedi Temple, I mean, the younglings are going to start picking up Tolkien and reading him afresh. I'm all about that. It's super cool. And so the cyclical range of literary and pop culture continue to roll and roll together in this very weird thing, this dance of two dancing partners that's going on. It's very interesting to me. But we'll give it a chance and see what happens. But they're not filming in Shepperton Studios. The rumors, again, are that they are building 9 new sound stages with a total of 1 million square feet. Biggest stages that are handling production efforts in the UK right now are definitely under the auspices of Amazon. Amazon Studios is making shows, but it's not Rings of Power. They're making 2 other shows on their Scotland stages. Other rumors are that the orchestrator of the Hobbit motion picture scores, the orchestrator working very closely with the musicians and also working on the side with Howard Shore. That gentleman, his name is Conrad Pope. We've been hearing weird rumors that he showed up at Air Studios where Bear McCreary has been in recording sessions on something. Something secretive. I wonder what it is that's going on there. So there's all the rumors that we've got. Oh, and this is interesting. The last thing of the show before we close out our Torn Tuesday for another wonderful broadcast. I have to say, there once was a 2-film deal. And there was a filmmaker that got into a deal with another filmmaker. Who was that? To make 2 films? And they promised it would be a 2-film set. And it was one filmmaker, Peter Jackson, getting into bed with another filmmaker. What am I talking about? It's not The Hobbit. We're talking about Peter Jackson's 2-film project with Steven Spielberg. Guess what we just heard? It has been confirmed that The Adventures of Tintin, that's right, remember that CG animated The Adventures of Tintin? Well, it was supposed to be made as a 2-part, okay? Peter Jackson was going to do the one, Steven Spielberg did the first one, but you know what? The second one never got made. Finally, as our last piece of news to you tonight, all those big Peter Jackson fans out there might be surprised to learn that the animated CGI sequel is going to be The Adventures of Tintin, Red Rackham's Treasure. And I am not sure if Andy Serkis is involved, but he did play an important character. He was the voice of the Cookie. So if Andy Serkis comes back to The Adventures of Tintin, it's going to be the first time in a long time that Peter Jackson himself, as a director, is coming back to work with Andy Serkis. So if that happens, it represents a unique motion picture moment in history where Andy Serkis, the very famous Smeagol Gollum, who should have gotten nominated and should have won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, that Gollum, he's going to come back to work to do, hopefully, and there'll be a lot of other character voices as well for The Adventures of Tintin, Red Rackham's Treasure, and that was a double film deal with Amblin Entertainment. That's right, Amblin Entertainment and Universal Studios. Universal and Amblin made that double picture deal. Peter Jackson and a lot of his team are in the mix on that. So that's the news. That's all the news that we've got, everybody. Okay, Orion's Angel, back in the chat. Let's just say goodbye to everybody in the chat. Cliff, will there be moments after you watch Rings of Power episodes where you will tell us that what they did in the episode doesn't fall in line with Tolkien's writings? Will you object to it? And the answer is yes. Constantly. Yes. Without a millisecond of doubt. I will constantly be harping on the anachronisms when the anachronisms don't work. I will be harping and criticizing on weird things that are squishy in the timeline that don't work, when things smell weird in terms of the metaphysics. Especially you can count on me to be the person to come and say, that might work, but that really doesn't work in terms of how we understand the metaphysical destiny of the characters of elves and men and dwarves, and how they are divergent from one another, and how much that element causes a lot of stress and a lot of push and pull in the relationships between these characters, and a lot of the difficulties of trust and not trusting. Remember, we're going to get back to that. Whom can you trust? Whom is untrustworthy? All that stuff is going to be broken down, and if the writer's room do a great job of it, I'll be the first in line to say that's a great job, because it's an alignment with, the metaphysics of Arda and the way Tolkien is trying to present these different destinies that are so far off into the distance. Even though they're that far away, they still have the most immediate and pronounced effect, acutely affecting the here and now. The characters in the now are very strongly affected by Tolkien's metaphysics of things that are seemingly very far distant, but it's not. Not in the spirit and in the minds of these characters. It's immediate. The immediate presence of those metaphysical challenges are there. It's there for them to win or lose. It's all there. It's in J.R.R. Tolkien, and it is within the power of these showrunners and writers to effectively embrace it and use it, or to stumble and fall. Either outcome is equally likely, and I'm here for it either way. So, glad I answered that question. Yes, thanks everybody. It's really wonderful to have been with all of you today on this cool solo version of Torn Tuesday. I want you all to stay safe and stay sane. Be gentle with yourselves. Be extra gentle with yourselves in times of turbulence. And as the boat keeps rocking and the turbulence of the waves keeps coming to the shore, always remember, as Gandalf said to Bilbo, always remember, Bilbo, when your heart wants lifting, think on pleasant things. The things that heal you are within the pages of Professor Tolkien. The things that heal me are within all the stories of Tolkien and his many adaptations and the many board games and the wonderful experiences of Tolkien that allow me to interact and share the ideas and themes with my friends and loved ones who are sitting at the table with me already. Before we close the show, I will do one programming note for the Prancing Pony podcast. I was recently interviewed by those wonderful, wonderful people at the Prancing Pony podcast. It was such a great conversation, and we got deeper into the weeds than I thought, but I'm really glad we did. We got into the weeds and talked about the history of our community website, theonering.net. We talked about our experiences with the Lord of the Rings trilogy back in the day. Had a really fair and open-handed conversation with everybody. Please take a listen. Go and find the Prancing Pony podcast where you do find your podcasts, and take a listen to my conversation and see if it takes you down memory lane a little bit. Talk about what the internet was like in the 90s, and I'm also going to appear on another podcast that talks about Ain't It Cool News and the rise and fall of Harry Knowles. That's another podcast that I'm going to be on as well. And thank you. Yes, Otaku Senpai, hashtag fidelity to Tolkien, and hashtag challenge expectations. I appreciate that. It's been a very interesting show. Even without the banter of my co-host and my producer, Justin, I wish him well. I wish him very, very well on his journey to wherever he's journeying. And been quite interesting. I guess he's going to come back and join us in another week or two, but I'm glad to hold down the fort. You guys have been such a wonderful, wonderful audience. Thank you for being with me on this program. This is Torn Tuesday. It is now time to say good night and good luck. And I have my own unique way of saying it. Thank you again to this audience. Thank you to the hardworking game designers, all the board game designers out there, and to Reiner Knizia. I'm going to wave you to you. I love you, Ryan. Reiner Knizia, you're one of the best game designers ever out there. I can't believe how awesome you are. And I want to say thank you to the beautiful audience who's come to visit us and have a nice conversation about all nerdy stuff, Tolkien. I'm going to see you guys next week, obviously, at 5 p.m. Pacific time for another invigorating episode of Torn Tuesday. We'll have more rumors about the Rings of Power. We'll have more news that is confirmed and not confirmed. We're going to have a whole basket full of mischief for all of you guys. And you know what? You're just the best. You guys are the best. Thanks for being here with me and for making me feel like this is a great community that we've still got going on here. 23 years later after the launching of the OneRing.net. I know we had a 20th anniversary for the Fellowship of the Ring. It's going to be a few months. And we'll be doing 20th anniversary of the theatrical release of The Two Towers. So we got a lot coming up later this year. There will be public events at San Diego Comic-Con. And in the fall, I'm sure in September, there will be huge events in Atlanta, Georgia for Dragon Con. When that happens, we're going to have more news and announcements, much more stuff here as we carry forward our fandom and all this invigorating conversation. Thank you, everybody, for being so excellent. I want to say a big shout out to Varking Rune Song, my brother in Dwarven Arms. Thank you for helping us run things over in the Discord. Very special shout out to Tukish. Thank you also to everybody on the Discord. I'm going to see you guys next week in good health, in good state of mind, in good taste. Hopefully I'll arrive in good taste. I'll see you guys next week. Until then, I say buenos noches y buena suerte. I'll talk to you guys later. Find me online at QuickBeam2000. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at QuickBeam2000. I'll see you guys later. Bye.